Hello everyone and welcome to video 8. Today we'll be looking at presenting details. So today's video is going to be a bit less hands-on and a bit less tutorial driven and a bit more discursive, and we'll just kind of talk you through and show you a few things to keep in mind when you're preparing your details. So the content today is kind of broken down into detail conventions and layout. So detail conventions is how you would work on your details in paperspace. So that's looking at kind of how you should change your line thicknesses depending on what it is you're showing. The same is true for hatches and membranes as well. These are the kind of three typical ones you're going to want to have changed, as opposed to just presenting everything all the same line weight and everything like that. Then next we're going to look at, once you've finished your detail, how you should lay it out on a page. So that's including title blocks and annotations and sort of drawing titles as well. And then at the bottom there, the tool section is just, we're going to also outline as we're going some of the really useful tools for when you're doing this. So there's a line weight viewer, so you can see how thick your line should appear in print. We're also going to look at leaders and leader styles. Leaders is just AutoCAD's word for a dimension line. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with these already, but there's lots of useful stuff we can do with them. We can align leaders. We can change the style so you can get whatever particular aesthetic out of it you want. And then lastly, we'll just look a little bit as well at transparency, angle and scale relating to hatches. Okay, so we'll just get started again.
Okay, so first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the drawing that you're after, that you want to edit, and we're going to mess about with the line thicknesses right now. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to head down to the tab down the bottom, customization, click on there, and we want to find the line weight, which is here. Okay, so we turn that on and we can see down in the bottom there, there's an icon for line weight. So if we click on that, that means that all visible line weights will show. Now your drawing should be at the minute in default line type and weight. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to edit the line types for kind of materials that have been cut or kind of heavy materials, just to kind of make them stand out and make them look a little bit better. The first thing we're going to do is kind of good practice. What we like to do is we kind of highlight our whole drawing and we head up to the line weight and we change it to 0 millimeters. Okay, so that just makes everything nice and light. So,
And yeah, so from that point then we can kind of start making certain lines thicker and everything. And as James says, the idea is to get your thick cuts and like your heavy materials to be in a much darker line weight, and that's kind of a industry sort of standard, and it just helps the readability of the drawing, so you're not, you know, kind of trying to differentiate between what's a heavy cut steel beam and what's just like a kind of minor fixing, you know. It just makes life a lot easier. And if, as James is on here, if he changes the line thickness of something to quite a thick line, so on this one here, and he's just up the top there, changes it to 0.35 or whatever, you can see as he's scrolling there that the line thickness is actually changing in the viewport, and that's from that line, the line thickness setting that we just turned on a minute ago. And this is super handy. I mean, James and I didn't know about this when we were in first and second year, and what we had to do was pretty much just print out the drawing every time, because without that everything just looks the same thickness until you print it. So it's a really handy tool for saving you a lot of time and a lot less kind of preview checks and everything like that.
yeah, so usually what we like to use is 0.35. I think it's a good cut. It will be dependent on what size and what scale you print your drawings out though, but for kind of 1 to 10 is what this drawing will be out at. 0.35 is a good line weight for cuts. So we'll kind of just go over a couple more of these.
Yeah, so another good one is your membranes, so like your DPCs and DPMs, whatever. They're always shown as being very thick cuts as well, and normally in a color, and that's just so they stand out a lot. I mean, as you know, in real life they're only thin little sheets, basically, most of them, so it's really important that they, you know, that whoever's viewing these drawings knows exactly where they go, because they're often very integral to the performance of a building. So very thick cuts for them, as James is showing you here again, using a nice bright red color, and then he's going to pick a very thick line thickness again, so 0.35, 0.40, whatever. Again, it depends on the scale you're printing these drawings out at or viewing on a screen, so there is a fair degree of license with these. There is no prescribed sort of right answer, but again, there James has changed that one. So I guess then the next thing would be hatches.
Yep, hatches. So again, it's just really what you need to learn, what hatches are for what materials. So you can see here we've got a concrete hatch here that we've placed in, and once you've put a hatch into area of the drawing, you have your kind of panel up here, which allows you to change it between. You've got all these different kind of presets for your hatches, but again, it's getting to know the correct hatch for the correct material. We've also got the angles and hatch transparencies as well. So you want to kind of put the transparency up a little bit. Again, when it's inside these kind of thick cut lines, just again kind of makes that pop there too.
Yeah, and sometimes the danger is hatches can, if they're too dark a line thickness, again distract from what's actually going on. Hatches in general, or you want to be kind of very faint and kind of background information, just to let the viewer know what material it is they're looking at. So the best way for that, again, is in the hatch settings, the transparency. If you pull that up, it kind of lightens the image. And again, yeah, angles, and the bottom one there as well as scale. So sometimes if the scale is too high, it just prints out as just like, kind of pure ink, and you can't really see the details. So you can mess around with the scale as James is doing there. That's made it making it 0.5 scale. You can see more of it, and again, it just depends on what it is you're hatching. So as you can see there, 40 is not gonna work for the purposes of this block that you're filling. So 2 kind of works, but again, you can only see a little bit of it, so it's hard to tell that that's concrete. Now you can see, because there's more of the triangles than the dots, yeah, that is concrete. So that's pretty much everything for the drawings then. So if we just nip over to our layout that we've got, and if you just zoom in a little bit there, James. So this is one we kind of made earlier, I guess, and this has got all the line weights and hatches and everything done. So as you can see, I hope you can see that it's fairly clear what's going on in this drawing now. You can see there's heavy cuts around the foundations there and the blockwork that comes up from it. The DPM and DPC are, in very large line weights as well, and the red makes them really pop. You can see that they're there, and if you scroll slightly further up there as well, James, you can see the steelwork there again is differentiated from the background and from the clips on the other side, which aren't actually being cut through. So yeah. Again, kind of make at the start how we changed everything to 0mm thickness. When you zoom in, you've still got that clarity on kind of small intricate details there as well. So yeah, if you keep it on the default, it sometimes makes it too thick and it's really hard to read, but you're retaining everything there. So and so if you join us in the next part, then we're just gonna go over how to set this out all together on a page. Okay, so now we're gonna look at how you create your actual page layout, so how you show your detail, including like the annotations and title blocks and everything like that. So you go to your paperspace, so you go around the bottom here. We've got a bunch of different tabs for this project, but we have got one on this layout here. And yeah, so we've already positioned this drawing and made it to the correct scale, but we assume you guys know how to do that, and it was shown in one of our earlier videos as well. But the first thing that we're going to look at then is annotation, and there's sort of 2 different ways you can annotate. You could literally just use the line tool, and make sure you're on paperspace here and not drawing on the model. You could just go on that and then just draw a line, pull it off from the element you want to talk about, and then once you've done that, also just add in a text box describing whatever it is that the annotation is pointing to. So that's one way to do it. And then you could of course change the line as well and make that a different thickness, or depending on what it is you're trying to show. Again, no real wrong answers here, but it's all about getting the clarity to come through. But there is also tools in AutoCAD for annotation, so you can use this tool, the leader tool up here. So if you click on that and then click from the element as well, it then creates kind of all of it in a oneer, which can be really useful. And then again, you can then, it's really hard to type and talk. You can then use that to create your annotations, and it's normally a bit more controllable to do it this way. So if we just copied this a couple of times, and say you're drawing your different annotations and everything like that, and then at the moment it's a bit of a mess and you really want them to all align to one kind of good solid line at the back here, so say all the text started on this line, you can do that with the annotation tools. So if you go into annotate up at the top, and then you should see there's an icon here next to multi-leader called align. So what you do is you select all of the annotations that you want to align together. We'll just have to deselect this one here. You select them all, you click on align, and then click whichever annotation you want to align them all to, and then you can align them in weird ways and stuff, but normally you just want to align them orthographically, and then yeah, you kind of get it like that. So if we look at an example of using that, this is a coursework of mine from last semester, and yeah, as you can see, when you've got a lot of annotations going on, it can be really painstaking to align them all individually. So you can see on this one here, there's kind of 1, 2, 3, sort of 4 kind of alignment points that have been used here, and again, that was 4 commands to get them all aligned together like that. And then another thing to note from this drawing, which is normally a good thing to include, or well, not normally, but it can be very helpful, is these little diagrams underneath, where they kind of circle what the detail is you're looking at. Can be very helpful for whoever's looking at your details to kind of what's the word, kind of familiarize themselves with where they are in the building and where they're looking at. So yeah, so if we go back into the drawing then, and we'll just get rid of these. So yeah, so we've kind of prepared some annotation from earlier, and what we'll do is we're just going to unhide these. So obviously your annotation is going to be different from what ours is going to be, but we've just drawn this through the kind of line way and adding the text in. But again, you can follow the other method of using the annotation tool. It is a lot easier and a lot kind of quicker to implement there as well. The next thing to add is, you can see obviously we've drawn our annotation into the drawing, however, but you can see we've got this big black box around our drawing. So the best way to get rid of that is if you just highlight there, and we go to home, and we can actually change the colour of the surrounding box. So if we just click on the colour there, and if we change it to white, then that just completely gets rid of the surrounding box there. And you can see that on the top and at the right hand side, I've actually drawn 2 lines there as cut lines, just to kind of show that's where the end of the drawing is. Yeah, again, that's another one that's pretty industry standard, to have cut lines in to indicate the edge of what you're showing. And one other point quickly, just to jump in with about the annotation that I forgot to show you, is you can change the kind of styling of the annotation. So as you can see there's just kind of, I'll just put in some random text there, but they've got a kind of default arrow sort of style there. You can change that to be architectural ticks or whatever you want. So again, if you go up to the annotate and you go on multi-leader there, and where it says standard above, manage multi-leader styles and modify the kind of current one you're on, you can change everything. So you can make it colored, you can make different line styles, everything. There's tons of stuff to mess around with in there, so you can get them looking a particular way. So with that then, we'll just so once you've done your annotations, and remember to try and kind of keep them all in nice lines and nice clean sort of visual lines to kind of keep everything organized. You'd add in a title as well, and we've just got one up the top here, but another good thing for titles is making them quite clear. So this one here is in bold font and is all capitals. It's just good to have a nice clear title so that as soon as you look at this drawing you know what it's about.
Yeah, exactly. And just kind of the last thing that we kind of want to get used to doing is adding title blocks onto your sheets. And these kind of hold key information about the drawings. You can see there's a title, but you don't really know the full detail of all the drawings. So John has included a kind of guide on producing title blocks. I think it's in the Industry Mentors folder. So we've made one just below here that we've hidden. We'll just get Scott to pull that up. And really it's including all the key information that we want to let the the client or the contractor know about the drawing. So we've got client up here, so this would obviously be who your client is. We've got the project, so if you've got a name for your project, that's a good kind of time to show that off. Prepared by, so this drawing was prepared by myself. However, in your groups, you're going to have a prepared by with all your names, and you're going to have another section with your group name as well. It's good to include your drawing title, so make sure it's going to be very similar to the heading that you've had, so group 4 detail, or if you've got a roof detail, just obviously letting them know what the drawing title is. And then some just other good ones down on the right hand side here are like when the drawing was produced, what size of page your drawing's on, and then we've got revision. So is this the first revision of the drawing that you've done, or are you on kind of B or C kind of revision points of the drawing? We've got scale down in the middle there, so that's important just to include that on as well, and just the page number as well. So if you've got 10 pages in your presentation, just it shows which page you're on. So I think the last thing that we're going to show you is just how to add like a logo onto your title block. This can be really good and effective just to kind of again show off your group. So if we just head up to insert and we go to attach, we're going to find our logo. So this is our logo here. It's good kind of practice to have this as like a PNG or a JPEG, and you can import that into there. Now it'll be quite big to start off with, so if you just place it straight away, you will need to scale it down obviously to fit into your title block, like so. Oh, Scott can work his computer.
There we go.
There we go. And we can just move that into place. Again, just make sure it's scaled appropriately. There we go. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add. Is there anything you want to?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. We will be going through this stuff, or we will have gone through this stuff in class with you as well. So hopefully you get a good sort of hang of what's going on. And again, you can always ask us any questions if you have any about how to work any of these things in AutoCAD. But yeah, generally the kind of top tips to take away from this is turn on the sort of line weight display. That's really handy for getting you to make your line thicknesses and see how it's going to appear when it prints without actually having to print it. Annotation as well is important in the kind of layout of annotation. It shouldn't just be all squiggled around the page. And then again, you can use the annotate tool as a very good way of doing that, and you can control that a lot with the annotation style and alignment of annotations. And yeah, lastly, your title blocks are also very important. They contain a lot of important information, more so when you get out into industry as opposed to now. But things like revision numbers and like pages even, it seems like a very simple thing to put on and not that important. But if you had a 12-page document and you sent it out to the contractor, but they only got 11 of the pages, if there wasn't a page number thing at the bottom, then they would just assume 11 was the total number of pages, and
Yeah.
they'd be missing a whole page of information. Whereas if you had the page numbers on, they could go, wait a minute, I've only got pages, 1 through 11. It says there's 12 pages, there's one missing. It's things like that. It is very important to have these on.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing is just to make sure that if you do have multiple pages, making sure that your title block's consistent throughout. Don't have it kind of changing location on the page. Keep it to a set location. So we would keep ours to the bottom right hand side, and it just kind of a bit kind of cohesiveness without the presentation. So
So yeah, that's everything.